Afternoon, everyone. My talk's a little different. It's more sort of, and I'm not trained in shiatsu, but it's more meridian-based and yoga posture-based because it was all very great when I was doing Lisa's and Andre's classes. Everyone was really strong in Manly. But when I went to the gyms, these are non-yoga people, like no gut, no understanding. They were actually better to work with. I didn't like working with hatha people because they had a concept of it already, and Ryoho is a little bit more different concept than hatha is. So with the elderly people, and a lot of them were really overweight, and so I had to like halve a lot of the postures. I always remember Andre saying to me, it's the posture and the breathing that does everything. He said, the yoga will keep you fit, but the pranayama keeps you alive. It's much stronger, and the yogis in India prove that by all their breathing techniques that they can do all these amazing things with. So in order not to hurt people, I had to make emphasis on the posture. Doesn't matter how big your movement is, because everyone wants to get everyone's egos involved, and they're looking at other people doing this, and they want to be able to do that too. And as Stephen was referring to, they'll just collapse their chest and use this to come up with, and we're trying to work in here, accessing a meridian which is flowing through the actual organ we're working. I then decided to, over a period of time, I saw that if you, and I remember it from Andre's teachings when we were all in the school, if you time the breath perfectly with the movement, you're aware, and the yoga is always at the beginning and the end of a movement. The movement's just movement. So if you time your breath perfectly, if all the air leaves by the time you're in an extended state, you have a natural awareness of what you're using. You don't have any choice, because you can't hold if you've got no breath left. And so when you breathe in, I get them to breathe into what they can feel and tell them there's no yoga over on the floor, because that's what the ego wants. You watch all people, they always try and get their thing, and then their legs on the floor, and then they can't get back up again. Their shoulders come off, and they're actually hurting their spine. So with the more mature people, I just sat them down and just cut everything in half, and made sure that, especially with sit-ups and things like that, that their back was dead straight. So they already had this. I didn't need to reinforce it. So, and also there's a lot of emotion in here with all this stuff. People have issues, orders, they avoid foods and situations because of this diet thing. So when you come up against a weakness within this digestive system, it's a real mental struggle for people, because one, they feel weak, and two, there's also the emotion behind whichever organ we're doing. If they lack function in the organ, then the emotion's going to be stronger. Their experience of it's going to be more negative than positive, because they're struggling. So what I did was I brought all the movements down and made sure they were doing perfect posture. I said, I don't care how big your movements are. There's certain things we're here to do. And I also found that a lot of people try and go too far too quickly, and it's no. The two slow ones are for you to work out where your boundary is, because you can't change a boundary if you don't know where it is. And a lot of that with sort of gym people was, it's just a grey area for them. And so what I had to do was bring it in to show them what the problem was. It wasn't this, and it wasn't this bit of fat here and whatever their issue was. It was actually the function of the organ, and that's all that's important, is the function of the organ. So how I brought it all in, because I always remember, like, we're no different to a Shaolin monk. No different at all. He's just trained how to use an internal energy system for 20 years, where our energy goes outwards. His goes in, which is why they can do all these amazing things. So I figured that, well, if that's present in everyone, I just pull everything down, you know, like, don't go for big movements, don't do any of that stuff, and perfect your posture. You'll get to the floor quicker if you perfect your posture. So, but that's the hard part about it. And so with older people, had to be really careful of their necks, their shoulders. They had no gut and their back. So the only way I could work the gut was to, you know, sit-ups first, gentle ones, not coming from the ground ever, because they won't do the sit, like as you said, they won't do the sit-up properly anyway. They just curve everything and reinforce what they've already got. So we always remember Andre saying, lean back, take them back. And so it takes a lot of instruction, because I have to make them aware of a few things, because most people are unaware, so they'll go back beyond their boundary, their feet will come off the floor, and of course they'll tighten this. So I give them little indications, like as you go back, your boundary will be found if you're aware of your toes just starting to go a little bit light. Not lifting, but just going back. And how I can get them to focus on that is to time their breath, because then they're in there. You can't be any more aware than when you breathe in. And so that then gives quality to what we're doing and puts it like it gives the posture like a function. And it's like, no, that's all we're after here. We're not trying too hard, similar to what you were saying. And with elderly people, you build this hara strength really quickly. And in all my classes that I used to teach, all the people were so strong, but they just don't know because they don't compete with each other. But you know, you can look at someone who's 55 or 60 doing this particular type of sit-up or lifting their legs off the floor, using this pressure, and you're like, most people their age couldn't even get close to that. They can't even sit straight. You know, it's that thing. So when I was going to work them and push their boundary a little bit, I just gave them something else to focus on, other than the, oh my God, you know, this internal dialogue that they get if you don't give them something to focus on. So the breath took all that away and kept them in the present. It stops the mind from jumping in. Otherwise, if they're just in their mind thinking about what they're doing and, oh, that's a bit weird, and you know, that stuff, when they're breathing, if they're focusing on perfectly on the beginning and end of a movement to time the breathing with that, it negates all the internal dialogue, because they've got something else to focus on. And they're doing pranayama, which quietens the mind down. So it's a double whammy, and it works really quick. I've had a hell of a lot of success with elderly people, you know, people over 50, 55, who are really, really strong, only because I take away all the ego out of it. I've got to get rid of that ego, and their concept of bigger movements is bigger yoga, because everyone has that. And it's like, no, it's not. Smaller movements and perfect posture is better yoga than throwing your legs around or doing knees separating and all that. And so what I found was this, especially with the legs together and the knee stuff, they had trouble squeezing. They had nothing in here, nothing at all. So if I took them back and their legs separated, it's their spine lifting and this bit, so I just, it switches from here to here, which is pointless. So I just made them become aware of perfect posture. You're like a soldier or a robot, you're not, that's all we're doing. We're working this bit. It's not about the sit-up, because I found that they got really involved in the movement, because they think that's what it's about. And it's like, no, Andre always used to say the movement's just getting from one bit of yoga to the next. So how do you know where the yoga is? You time your breath perfectly. When you can't go any further, all the air is out. As you go to lift back up again, bang, it goes into the organ. And you focus them to breathe into it using the chi energy, because that's what we're working with. You build their strength really quickly, because we're not just using physical. Awareness gives you access into chi. That's how it works. But you have to be really aware of what you're doing, not pushing it, just making sure you're doing it perfectly. And then that's because you're doing it perfectly and with awareness, chi is allowed to come through. It just comes through. It's like a gift. There you go. And I always remember that Andzej always used to say, just do the posture. It will come afterwards. What do I do? Oh, there it is. So, and that's really hard to do with people when their ego's involved and they've got internal dialogue, because to quieten someone's internal dialogue is really difficult. Not so bad in a yoga class, but try it in a gym. It's really difficult sometimes. But they do listen. That's what I liked about them. They didn't have preconcepts. So if I told them to do something, they would do it. It's like, it's okay if you can't, just break it down a little bit. Don't go big. And that way I got a lot of success with some people who were not very fit at all. You know, they didn't have this. They're quite round here, all that sort of stuff. So I found that the feet is the most important thing, because that's what's given you access to here. A couple of times after they've gone left and right, you just watch the feet go, as the tension comes from here and comes up into the front, and they start trying to do that. And so, and you could, somebody who's a little overweight and not extremely fit, some of these people, you can see that they haven't done sport ever, you know? So they're the people you've got to be really careful of, because you can seriously hurt them, seriously, because they're not using this, they're using the whole spine and twisting the whole spine, and that could cause a hell of a lot of problems in people, because there's no strength. It's the spine lifting, not belly. So what I find was, over all the years, it's just keep reiterating to them as they're doing it. Breathe out, like I always go, breathe out, relax your shoulders. Breathe out, and so when they're in that position, because they'll be all internal dialogue, if I go, just breathe out and relax your shoulders, it just kills the dialogue, and they actually do the yoga. And it's that thing. So I find that the breath, using the pranayama, is a really easy way of doing it. You don't have to thrash the class for it. It's not about that. Yes, you know, the regulars will push it, but it's not about them. They already know what they're doing. It's the people that I found that didn't know. And especially working in gyms, you have they're on you all the time about hurting people. And if I did anything wrong, any complaint, they were on me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't allowed to talk food. Wasn't allowed. Oh, you don't hold a thing in nutrition. Can't be done. And it's like, but that's the whole part of my yoga. It's all part of the yoga itself. It's not nutrition. It's part of this holistic approach. Wasn't allowed to do it. Got canned. So it's sort of different. So then I thought, okay, now how can I get around this? So I just started perfecting the posture and teaching them pranayama. And as Andzej always said, the yoga keeps you fit. Pranayama keeps you alive. And you know that through all the pranayama practices that yogis do in India. They can do way more amazing things than yogi people, way more, because it's a different level. It's sort of a higher level of chi. Like there's levels of it that you sort of go into it, and you guys know this through your practice. But the more you get to know it, the easier it is to understand, and it's quite simple. It's really simple. It's just this energy flowing through your body, and if you breathe properly, you're using that particular meridian, it's purifying the organ that it's flowing through. That's all that's required. Nothing else. You can do the diet and stuff, but as long as they're doing that, and every posture is yoga, that's where they get the benefit. They'll feel awesome at the end. Doesn't matter how big it was. There's a quality to it. And I think a lot of the time in the quality is lost, because people struggle and they go, oh, I just want to get to 10. You know that thing, and their knees are bent or their feet are going. So it's that thing, you want to hold it, and it also teaches the brain, the breath and the connection with the breathing into the organ, tells the brain what you're doing. It's pretty smart quantum computer, organic quantum computer. And for me, in my experience, it also gives you access to the chi. because you require a certain amount of strength, but you're not asking for it. You're not mentally asking for it. You just get into a position, you lock that yoga position in, and you take that big breath in and you move. That's what brings it through. So it's not done with thought. It's like, okay, what's required of me here? And what do I need to make sure that they hold on to? And so I would find that there's certain people who find it really difficult to straighten their legs or pull back on their feet. That's a real challenge for people. And I was always like, why can't I teach people for 2 years, feet are still like this? And it's like, how many times have I said, pull the toes back? Like 1 million? And I was always like confused. And one day I ran into Louisa before she went away, and I said, what's this thing about the feet? You know, like you talk for 5 minutes, toes back. Okay, we're going to push through our heels, lift your leg. And you go, okay, and breathe in and exhale, and half the knees are bent like that. Like they just lifted their leg. And you're just like, oh, that was a waste of time. So Louisa I said, well, what is it? And she goes, it's fear in the back of the knees. That's all it is. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Especially because it's the more overweight people or the people that are weak that will bend their knees and drop their feet because they can feel, they're analysing the weakness. And so what I try to do is keep them away from the analysing and breathe. Breathe. It's all breathing. And after a little while, their mind gives up anyway because they get into that pranayama state. It's a meditative, it's a Zen state basically, but we're using breath and movement to get there, which is why most people, if they do the class properly, they're in a completely Zen state when they leave. They don't need to go and meditate. They've already done it in their breathing and the movement. And it's a personal inward focus that's really important because everything's out there. Everything, demand, everything, everybody wants a piece of us, all that sort of stuff. And so it's one of those things where you can bring it back in, and for people as well, you know, it brings them back into themselves purely just through breath, pranayama, and then without the thought, they're aware of their posture and what they're actually doing, you know, and that's how you build a yogi, I found. So, what else was it? The chi energy, when you time your breath with all the breathing, the chi energy that comes through is quite, it'll take a little while, but if you just don't worry about it and focus on the breathing, when it comes, you'll notice it because it comes as a strength. Like it's, oh God, I can go further. We've all been through this. We're now training and stuff. And it's that thing that's the thing that stimulates that inner awareness and connection to the chi energy itself, because it's more powerful than anything we have. It's flowing through our body, keeping us alive, and also it's the gateway through to the spiritual experience because it's not physical. Chi isn't physical. We experience it when it comes through as physical, but the energy itself isn't. It's just an energy. So it's very easy to connect with, but you just have to know, be focused, really, really focused in everything you do, and that's the gateway to it, because the pranayama is flowing along the meridian and through the organ because you've got perfect posture. It's not that it's over there, it doesn't matter, it's the perfect posture. And that's how you build strength and also awareness really quickly. The breathing brings about awareness, which is the most important thing in yoga. That's the whole benefit of it. Be aware of what you're doing, not thinking about what you're doing. Anyone who's thinking about what they're doing doesn't have posture, you can tell, because it's an internal focus that you're using physically to gain access into something else, this unseen energy that's far more powerful than all of us. So that I found was it was a great discovery to find for people that I'm teaching, so I didn't hurt them, and so they actually did yoga. That's the most important thing. You know, in a lot of the thing. People are just throwing their legs around, and it's like, that's not yoga at all. You're meant to be having postures and breathing. That's yoga. So giving them that quality, taking the pressure off them about, because we all have an ego, and they can see across the room at the person over there, and then they start to feel bad about them. Oh, I can't do that. Or they'll try to go further and break the posture, and then they're not doing anything anyway. So I made it really strong that I don't expect anything. All I expect is breathing, focus on timing of breath and the posture. I'm not interested in how big your movements are, not interested at all. So I found that that's what built strength in my clients really quickly, because they were actually doing yoga. And it's the breathing and the pranayama that brings them in, like what you were saying, brings them into their body. So they're actually aware, not this thinking thing done out here in the ether. And that mind-body awareness combined with the pranayama, the breathing, is what consolidates everything, makes it develop really quickly. I remember when we did the course, especially Lisa was a stickler for posture. It's why I'm like that, because I taught her classes after she left. So, but those people were all really strong. It was shocking when I went to the gym and I went, oh my God, what am I going to do here? I'm going to kill these people. I'm going to break their backs. They're going to be all achy, and the front desk is going to be in my face. So I just had to bring it all back. And for them, it takes away that thing like, oh, I can't do it. And the ones that struggle with just that little bit, it points it out to me so I can go and assist them to do it, just pull their toes back a little bit, or just straighten this. And that's what it takes for them to do it. And it's easy to find these people if everyone's just been able to do their posture properly and get away from this big moves is big yoga, which is probably the biggest trap in yoga. Everyone thinks that a big move is big yoga, and it's not. Look at half the postures we do. The most devastating ones, you don't move at all. At all. And you stop and you're like, oh my God. And you go down. That yin thing comes through really, really strongly. So, and that's another thing that I reiterated to my clients was don't try too hard, especially in forward bends and things like that. You can see on it, jam neck, shoulders like this, squeezing the shoulder blades and the knees going up and down. So they're not doing anything except tightening their neck. So you have to sit them back down and just tell them it's all about the ground, because we're monkey trained to think that everything's in movement. That's what distracts us. But it's what's not moving is where the yoga is. So I just get them to really focus on what it was, because they're all in their upper body, because that's what's moving, and so mentally that's where they are. And it's like, no, I've got to pull them out of that and get them into the backs of their legs. And so therefore this bit is irrelevant. You can only go to a point where you're like, oh, there's the back of my leg. That's it, that's all that's required. They're going to put their fingers on their toes. That's what they think is the best. So, but always remember Andre saying, it's not forehead on knee, it's stomach on thigh. So that's the hinge thing. And if their legs are moving slightly, they'll never get the hinge. They can't, because this can't strengthen enough to lift them to create the hinge. They're still in this thing. So, yeah, I guess that's about it, really. It's just a different approach on how to look at it. Thank you.